111 new COVID-19 infections recorded on Wednesday. Senior lawyer and activist Femi Falana identifies some provision of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, CAMA 2020. He says grossly violates rights. In international news, mass protest in Belarus after Lukashenko's secret swearing in. And in sport, Barcelona agrees to sell Suarez to Atletico Madrid.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control and CDC has added 111 new cases of COVID-19 to the country's tally on Wednesday. The health agency now puts the total at nearly 58,000. The agency reports 149 persons were discharged after being successfully treated and had recovered from the coronavirus. 2 patients were said to have died of the disease between Tuesday and Wednesday. The new cases were reported from 12 states and the Federal Capital Territory, FCT. Lagos recorded 31 cases, followed by Gombe and Kaduna with 18 each, and the FCT with 15. Rivers recorded 14 new cases. Imo, Kwara, and Oyo each showed 3 new infections. Bayelsa and Ogun 2 each. Edo and Osun recorded 1 each. The NCDC says 57,724 cases have been confirmed, with nearly 49,000 patients discharged. The country's death toll stands at 1,102. There have been so much back and forth on the provisions of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, CAMA 2020, that have ruled some religious organizations. Now, activist lawyer, senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, and former chairman of the National Human Rights Commission, Professor Chidi Odikalu, are pointing out some provisions of the act they say grossly violates rights. The 2 men say the new law arrogates too much power to the Registrar General of the Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC. Power they say he could use to clamp down on civil society organizations. Falana and Odikalu were speaking during a virtual town hall meeting on the act, which was jointly organized by the European Union Act, the Open Society Initiative for West Africa, Working Group on Civil Society Regulatory Environments, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, CEREP, and the Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC. Falana specifically pointed out Section 389 of the law that gives CAC the power to suspend the Board of Trustees of an organization in crisis and appoint an interim committee to manage its affairs. He also folds Section 842 that gives CAC authority to take over funds in the bank accounts of an organization in crisis. He says that provision translates to, quote, obtaining money by false pretense. Professor Odikalu, in his own assessment, said part of CAMA 2020 is a confused mixture, a mismatch of laws the country had borrowed from the United Kingdom. He said those laws were hastily copied without the safeguards in the English law. In response to the observations, representative of the CAC Registrar General, Justin Idia, said further amendments to the law would serve as the forum to address the challenges. The killings in Zamfara and other parts of the north has become a great concern to the coalition of northern groups, which has now called on President Muhammadu Buhari to move proactively to stop the bloodshed in the region. The group's spokesman, Suleiman Abdulaziz, presented a petition to the Speaker of the State House of Assembly, Nasiru Magaya, in which he expressed dismay at what he called the ugly scenario in the state. The group wants President Buhari to ensure the arrest and prosecution of those supporting or collaborating with bandits in the state. The group said those people pose the greatest threats to peace and tranquility in the country. The Independent Electoral Commission, INEC, has now replaced the 5,000 card readers destroyed by fire 2 weeks ago at its headquarters in Akure, Ondo State capital. Commission Chairman Professor Mahmood Yakubu announced the replacement on Wednesday during a 3-day working visit to the state. Yakubu said his visit was to have a first-hand assessment of the level of the Commission's preparedness for next month's general election in the state. He promised this post would be hitch-free. Bauchi State Governor Senator Bala Abdikadir Mohammed says the recent flooding in the state had claimed at least 25 lives, while 17 others sustained varying degrees of injuries. The governor gave the update when a delegation of the National Emergency Management Team, NEMA, visited him at the government house in Bauchi. The delegation was led by NEMA's Director General, retired Air Vice Marshal Mohammed A. Mohammed. The governor said as many as 3,500 houses and more than 2,000 farmlands worth nearly 1 billion naira were destroyed by flooding. The governor was represented by his deputy, Senator Bala Tella, who said 16 of the 20 local government areas of Bauchi State experienced flood this year. They said the flooding was caused by unusual rainfall experienced so far. The governor has called on the federal government to do more to mitigate the effect of flood.
Coming up, African news. 2 arrested in Uganda over destructive fire at historical Makerere University. And later, international news. Mass protest in Belarus after Lukashenko's secret swearing-in.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. The main building at Uganda's 80-year-old Makerere University was set ablaze in the early hours of Sunday, causing it to suffer collapsed roof and cracked walls. Now the police say 2 security guards have been arrested in connection with the incident. Correspondent Hilary Ayesiga has the story.
This is the symbol of Makerere University, one of Africa's top learning institutions. The fire brigade team has managed to contain the blaze, which began on Saturday. It is now looking into the possibility of a security lapse.
So far we have 1 police officer in custody who was supposed to be on duty. He claims that he was on duty, but according to the interrogation so far, he had absconded duty. We also have a private security guard who was asleep in the sentry.
The fire destroyed the top floor, which holds students and finance records. This place has been sealed off as a crime scene. Authorities here say they are investigating the cause of the fire. But for the students and alumni, the main worry is about the academic documents.
Most of the files were being relocated to the main building, which means that most of the files were burnt. Remember, there are receipts within the financial offices, there are receipts within the academic registrars, and those papers of a program.
But the university authorities say most of this information had been captured electronically.
We have a lot of that information already in a digital form. And whatever was lost, we can recover from the many copies that are all over the university.
The university boasts of being a center of excellence in the region. Former African presidents like the late Julius Nyerere, Milton Obote, Benjamin Mkapa and Mwai Kibaki acquired their degrees from this institution. The building with its British architectural design was completed in 1941. Makerere University is due to celebrate its 100th anniversary next year.
The long-running corruption inquiry against South Africa's former president, Jacob Zuma, has presented different kinds of drama. Although he had denied any corruption activities, the former president has failed to show up for a corruption inquiry this week. Correspondent Angelo Coppola reports from Johannesburg.
The former president has been to the commission once before and avoided a second visit due to health reasons.
It is entirely predictable that the former president didn't pitch up for testimony because he's trying to, and he has been trying to avoid giving his version of events. And because he was not summoned, he wasn't legally obliged to come to the commission. And so he can't be punished, imprisoned, given a criminal record for refusing to come.
Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo told the former president's lawyers that on 9 October there would be a hearing about issuing a summons to force Zuma to appear. Analysts aren't surprised by the approach taken by the former president.
If he is summoned, I would be surprised if he doesn't challenge the legality of that summons, and that will take the whole process beyond the end of the commission. He doesn't want to testify, and he has options to stop it.
Zondo is taking a firm line and wants the former president to testify before the commission between 16 and 20 November.
Zondo needs Zuma to testify, and he went as far as offering to allow him to testify virtually, something he wasn't prepared to offer to any of the Gupta brothers who are also implicated in wrongdoing, corruption and state capture.
The Federation of Anti-AIDS Club in Comoros has celebrated its first anniversary of its headquarters in the nation's capital, Moroni. The celebration is declared as a framework for the members of the association to sensitize public opinion on sexually transmitted diseases, HIV/AIDS. The anniversary was funded by the country's Department for the Fight Against AIDS with the objective of promoting public health. Establishment of the center has received positive reactions from citizens who say it constitutes progress for local development. The Federation of Anti-AIDS Clubs is said to play a significant role in an awareness campaign on sexually transmitted diseases in the country. Leaders of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, have hinted on lifting sanctions earlier imposed on Mali in the wake of last month's coup. Imports to landlocked Mali have slumped since the imposition of a trade embargo. ECOWAS envoy, Nigerian former President Goodluck Jonathan, said Mali military officers who overthrew President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta were acceding to international calls for a transition to civilian rule. The military junta announced a former Minister of Defense, Ban Diar, as interim leader that would oversee a transition to a civilian-led government. Coup leader Colonel Assimi Goïta has been named vice president.
When we return, international news. Mass protests in Belarus after Lukashenko's secret swearing-in. And later, sport. Barcelona agrees to sell Suarez to Atletico Madrid.
You are watching ANN.
Somewhere in the world, every second of the day, news is happening. And of course, Nigeria is bustling with news day and night. That is why ANN doesn't sleep. Our eyes are peeled, wide open, so no story escapes our radar. We stay abreast of world events and happenings at home. We keep you up to the minute in the world of sports. We give you information to stay on top of your investments and all the hard facts you need to navigate your day. If you miss us on air, you can keep up to date on our website and on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. We are ANN, Africa News Network. We do news right in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Protesters took to the streets of Louisville, Kentucky, expressing anger hours after a grand jury brought no charges against Louisville police for killing Breonna Taylor. Authorities confirmed 2 officers were shot and wounded during the demonstrations over police killings of black people. Interim Louisville Police Chief Robert Schroeder said a suspect was in custody but did not offer details on whether that person was participating in the demonstrations. He said both officers are expected to recover. The violence comes after prosecutors said two officers who fired their weapons at Taylor, a black woman, were justified in using force to protect themselves after they faced gunfire from her boyfriend. The only charges were 3 counts of wanton endangerment against fired officer Brett Hankerson for shooting into a home next to Taylor's with people inside. A fewer than 2 years ago, California's Bard County was home to the deadliest wildfire in the state's history, claiming 85 lives. But even before completing the rebuilding process, the community is once again being threatened by blazes that continue to cause more casualties and destruction. Wildfires in the region have become more frequent and destructive over the years, but especially for lower-income families who are relying on donations to get back on their feet. Correspondent Eddie Stevenson reports from California.
Terry and John are among thousands of Northern California families who lost their homes to the Camp Fire 2 years ago, and among few who decided to stay.
It's hard living in a trailer. You got the septic you got to deal with all the time. We put up this shelter here for the shade and the deck to keep us out of the mud. It's got the trailer here to do the cooking operation out of, and basically it's all gonna just be temporary.
This temporary living situation is also costly. They run 2 generators to provide power for the cooler, washing machine, and other appliances scattered around the RV. Fuel alone costs them around $1,500 a month. They own the 4 hectares they live on in this canyon outside Concoe, California. But starting next year, the town council will only allow those with an active building permit to live in an RV, even if it's on their own property.
What I would like to see is the right to live on my property in a travel trailer if I so choose, and I don't see why, but they don't want to allow it. You can only be in your trailer for 1 year if you pay for the permit. So what about the people that are, not going to be able to rebuild? They're going to have to live in a trailer. There for those guys.
His wife has been following the legal battle with PG&E Electric Utility Company that was found responsible for the fire, but the settlement they were entitled to came nowhere near the value of their property.
Unless you're well insured, you're way down on the end of the road. If you were underinsured, you're probably spending every dime you had just to survive. If you had no insurance, you gotta wait for somebody to help you. Baking powder.
That help is coming from Terry, who turned her backyard into a donation center, a safety net for the fire victims like this couple who lost everything just a week ago.
Alright, let's do dinner.
For Laura, it's been 2 years since she lost her home, but it feels like it was yesterday.
You think you're okay, you think you're through, but you're not. It's weird. Something very deep. Very emotional. But there's so many lives that didn't make it, and it's like, oh my God.
This is a small community, and almost everyone knows one of the 85 people who died in the Camp Fire.
In the last week, we've had 3 suicides and 2 from ailments. I hear the stories of people that their parents made it out of the fire and they get wiped out on 99.
Now, before these stories are forgotten, there are more fires and deaths. And before survivors can rebuild, more homes destroyed.
We figure we're going to be as busy as we are in helping people for the better part of the next 10 years.
For the lower-income families falling victim to the wildfires, the recovery can be particularly long and painful.
Mass street protests have continued in Belarus's capital of Minsk after the unannounced swearing-in of President Alexander Lukashenko. There were reports of beatings and detentions by police, and video footage showed water cannon being used. Lukashenko was secretly sworn in for a 6th term, with only a few hundred supporters in attendance. Opposition members called the ceremony, quote, "thieves' meeting." The opposition says last month's poll was rigged in Lukashenko's favor. Belarus Electoral Commission announced Lukashenko won more than 80% of the vote, triggering weeks of mass protests across the country. Several EU countries and the US say they do not recognize Lukashenko as the legitimate president of Belarus. UK Education Secretary Gavin Williamson had earlier announced plans for all students in England to return to school this month, saying it is critical to ensure no child loses much time in education. Now university students will begin a new academic year with all COVID-19 health safety protocols in place. Correspondent John Beaver reports.
This is not what the main campus of one of the UK's biggest universities normally looks like just days ahead of a new academic year. Around 27,000 students are enrolled here at the University of Bristol, but nobody is sure how many will actually be in the city. It's blended learning for the foreseeable future. Gone are lectures in packed halls, they will all be online, but some smaller face-to-face teaching is still taking place.
Last year we had to suddenly change from delivering all our teaching face-to-face to delivering it all online. We learnt a lot from that pilot, if you like, but since then we spent a lot of time working with our staff to help them learn how to do digital online learning in the best possible way, and we believe that that blend of face-to-face and online can deliver a good student experience.
Students on some courses will spend more time on campus, but laboratories that could accommodate more than 150 students will only be about a third full to adhere to current government guidelines.
My university experience being affected by the pandemic is something that I've expected since March, so I've had plenty of time to kind of process it. But yeah, I feel kind of disappointed that I feel less excited than I would expect to be.
With strict limits on where and how many people can get together, welcome events for new students are almost all online, but they're being urged to make the most of this year.
I would say to them, have an open mind, be excited for all the opportunities that the year has ahead. Though there will be some tricky times, there is a lot that both the Students' Union and the university are doing to make sure that your educational and your student experience are of the highest caliber. So take every opportunity that comes to you and try and enjoy it as much as you can.
Universities will have to adapt throughout the year as restrictions undoubtedly change. For universities across the UK, the coming few weeks are a test to see whether they can deliver the education and experience they're promising whilst keeping their students, staff and the wider community safe.
Up next, sport. Barcelona agrees to sell Suarez to Atletico Madrid. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit. We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow the story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, Frank de Boer has been given a 2-year contract as Netherlands head coach to replace Ronald Koeman. Frank de Boer won 112 caps and played 2 World Cups for the Netherlands. Former defender de Boer, who also played for Barcelona and Ajax, won a record 4 successive Dutch league titles as coach of Ajax between 2011 and 2014. Barcelona have agreed to let striker Luis Suarez join La Liga rivals Atletico Madrid Uruguayan agreed terms on a reduced salary with Atletico after a move to Juventus fell through because of passport issues. Reports say Barcelona chairman Josep Maria Bartomeu blocked the deal because he did not wish to sell to his Spanish rival. But after meeting with Suarez representatives, the Catalan club backed down, with the striker threatening to air his grievances to the media. Suarez will earn half of the 30 million euros a year he earned at Barcelona. 15 million euros is still a hefty annual salary. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.